We don't do any kind of unscheduled interviews.
Well, I just came to see if Dr. Wofford's here. Dr. John J. Wofford is one of Texas Monthly's super doctors. We've seen his video on YouTube. He's one of dozens of doctors who works for one of the country's biggest dermatology companies. U.S. Dermatology Partners, 94 locations in 8 states, where patients, they say, come first. And that's a good thing, since so many of us need medical help with our skin, and not just the cosmetic kind. More than 5 million skin cancers diagnosed every year.
The main reason I chose to work with U.S. Dermatology Partners is that they have a great reputation in the Dallas area and the surrounding community of providing high quality care for their patients.
Glad I didn't need my skin checked that day because Dr. Wofford had ignored my phone calls for weeks. And when we went to his office in Plano, we didn't even make it to the front door.
We don't do any unscheduled interviews, and so we're just going to have to ask you to leave or we'll have to call the police.
But what exactly are the doctors of U.S. Dermatology so afraid of us asking about? Their patients, we think, have a right to know. I bet I know. They're trying to keep secret the exodus of doctors from USDP who are complaining the corporation is trying to play doctor, endangering patients.
And that this may be the most hated corporation in America right now from what they've done to the doctors and the patients and the staff.
Dr. Mark Ray practiced dermatology in his hometown area of Carrollton, Texas for decades. He built Trinity Dermatology on Josie Lane from the ground up. He grew up with many of his patients, but then sold his practice to U.S. Dermatology.
They promised that they would provide expertise in HR management. They would be able to get better cost on supplies. They would be able to negotiate better contracts with insurance companies.
So that Dr. Ray could spend more time, well, practicing medicine.
And that was an important part of our practice, to be someone that was reliable and someone that was stable and someone that was always there. And we've been there for 30 years.
But one day patients showing up to see their trusted hometown doc were told that Dr. Ray was gone. And U.S. Dermatology told his staff they couldn't tell his patients why.
So what they did is they required our staff, my former staff, to tell the patients that I'm no longer there, and they unfortunately used the term, he's no longer with us. Well, some of my patients thought I died.
Dr. Ray was not allowed to take any of his staff or even talk to his former patients about stuff like the results of their cancer biopsies, leaving scores of patients who had no idea what their results were. You still own that building?
I do own that building.
Can you go in that building?
I have been accused of trespassing by this company when I went into my own building.
Since our interview, Dr. Ray sold the building. But did USDP ever have a right to keep his patients in the dark? We looked at the Texas Medical Association rules, quoting, "It's unethical to interfere with the relationship between the departing physician and his or her patients by withholding information." Dr. Amanda Champlain claims she was disciplined for telling Ray's patients where he went, ordered not to tell anyone else. She later resigned. And Dr. Ray, he claims he was fired from the dermatology practice he created for blowing the whistle on USDP and their, quote, toxic culture on its physicians. Get this, Ray says he was finally fired after he signed up to give COVID vaccines to his patients. USDP, he claims, didn't want to offer that protection for their patients.
Within a month after they stopped me from giving the vaccine, I got the news that 2 of my patients died that I had just seen the month before and very likely would have offered them the vaccine.
Ray is now scheduled to appear at a Texas Medical Board investigative hearing in September with the support of 14 present and former U.S. dermatology doctors and providers. He'll detail allegations the huge doctor-run dermatology company, quote, places profits above patient safety. In one instance, a patient allegedly suffered a permanent deformed ear for the rest of their life. Listen up, folks. The doctors say they're being replaced by medical personnel with no formal dermatology training. Again, dollar signs for USDP. They're cheaper than real doctors, but at what cost to the patients? So how did the trouble begin for Dr. Mark Ray? Like a lot of doctors whose practices are increasingly gobbled up by big medical corporations, he had agreed to put some of the money he would make in the sale of his practice back into the company. But then this headline in Bloomberg: U.S. dermatology defaults on a $377 million loan. Ray's investment, he was now told, was likely worthless, and he sued for fraud.
We allege that they used phony figures and Enron type accounting.
Dr. Shanna Meads performed 1,000 surgeries a year while she was with USDP. She resigned after claiming they retaliated against her for blowing the whistle too, denied her the right to even practice for 130 miles away from her old practice. Quoting, because Dr. Meads wouldn't play ball, USDP would make her pay, her lawsuit reads. USDP's message is clear. Shut up, little lady. Meads had complained that one USDP doctor had received $100,000 in extra payments from pharmaceutical companies.
What drives us is our love for the patients.
Most of the money from abbvie, a company slapped with a $24 million fine for a fraud in California.
I'm Dr. Jenny Holman, board-certified dermatologist.
That doctor was Jennifer Holman, not just any dermatologist, but a member of the USDP Board of Directors. But Meads blew the whistle on patient abuse too. USDP went to court in Dallas to try to seal the damage, and that prompted other present and former USDP doctors to join the fray, alleging the company had been investigated for violating standards for medical testing labs and medical referrals.
Hi, I'm Dr. Lisa Pruitt.
USDP likes to highlight Dr. Lisa Pruitt from Dallas on the company YouTube page. But now she's one of the dermatologists suing USDP, highlighting the exodus of doctors from this so-called nonprofit corporation. And that's why we'd first gone to Dallas to see Dr. John Wofford. He's not just any USDP dermatologist. He's on the board of directors of Oliver Street, USDP's management company.
My name is Wayne Dolcefino. We're doing an investigation of USDP, and we want to talk to Dr. Wofford.
That's how we knew Dr. Wofford was in Plano that day. And by the time we got there, an email had already been sent out by USDP's chief operating officer, a guy named Taylor Anabnett, quoting, a fake news reporter showed up at one of our Dallas offices with cameras rolling. If they don't leave, call the police.
We're just going to have to ask you to leave, or we'll have to call the police.
At least their Plano employee can read her script. U.S. Dermatology even put out a wanted flyer of sorts on me. Here's a photo of me approaching an unsuspecting individual with a camera and a microphone. And there was a photo of me dressed in an orange jail jumpsuit after my false arrest by a judge in Houston that we were investigating for protecting public corruption. They left out that that judge is now under criminal investigation for his conduct, but hey, it's the age of fake news.
You were told I was out and about? Did you like the picture of me in my orange jumpsuit?
Do we need to call the police, or do we ask you to leave?
If you want to call the police, go for it.
USDP should be more worried about the safety of their patients rather than the danger of some veteran journalist with a TV camera. And so should their financial bigwigs at Golub Capital. the private equity firm behind the white coats of U.S. dermatology. We had reached out to President David Golub, but he ignored us. Maybe he doesn't have to worry about all those U.S. dermatology cancer patients because Forbes magazine says he's worth $1.1 billion. But I'm sure Mr. Golub is old enough to remember this guy, Dr. Marcus Welby. What a doctor used to be in America. Maybe Bloomberg is right. Private equity is ruining healthcare in America. Of course, those rich guys can't stop the patients of USDP from now taking their medical business somewhere else, like Little Elm, Texas, where Dr. Mark Ray is building an office for his new practice that's not connected to a big medical conglomerate like USDP. Dr. Ray will be in Dallas this September when that growing army of departing doctors challenge USDP in court for what they call the improper corporate practice of medicine and the consequences for unsuspecting patients.
We hope that something will be done to stop this kind of behavior.